Hey everyone, hello, it is Irene here. I'm popping in live to do a second live stream as part of our cyber sale weekend. It's a long weekend, Black Friday specials. So just off the top, as we get folks in here, number one, our sale is on today still until the end of the day. It's December 1st. It is the year 2025. I'm not sure how that happened, that we're here in December already. So here we are. If you want to get in, save $100 off of my signature self-study starter course, the 21-day nervous system tune-up, this is the time to get started. Of course, you can start at any time during the year, but this is when we offer one of these little specials. We'll pop a link in the chat. I've got my team on the chat, keeping the chat in good state here. I will be doing questions. I've got a whole bunch of questions that have been submitted via email, Instagram. Some of the questions I didn't get to on Friday, I have here as well. I've got another computer screen here that I'm looking at. So that's why I'm going to keep maybe looking over that way. And I just want to make sure you can hear me. So nobody has said that they can't hear me. So I'll just wait a second or two. And perhaps even let me know, are you someone you've already done my courses and programs? Have you just begun the 21 day? Did you just get in this past weekend or more recently? Let me know. I want to start out today by talking about a question that I get all the time. And the reason I wanted to bring this up, this came up on an Instagram comment a couple days ago. I've been doing this work in terms of working with humans since 1997. I've been working with neuroplasticity since 2004. I started learning about working with the nervous system, specifically trauma, regulation, dysregulation in 2008. I started learning how to work with early trauma, pre-verbal trauma in around 2012, 2011. I've done master classes with the man himself, Peter Levine, founder of Somatic Experiencing, at a very high level. I've assisted at those trainings. This was all kind of 2015, 16, 17, up until 18, I believe. So I've been doing this stuff for quite a while. And then the online space kind of took over and I shifted my private practice to here. Now, I don't practice with you on YouTube. That is not possible. It's not ethical. So the way that I teach and the way that I bring all my expertise to you in this online world is not through these YouTube videos and not through social media posts and not through my articles on my blog, which we have many, and all of this is very important information. But the practices, the step-by-step sequential workings of learning how to be within your nervous system and regulate your nervous system, that is within my 2 paid online courses. So I really want to put that layer in there because there's often confusion. Folks think that because all they see me do is educate here on YouTube, that's all that I know how to do. Far from that. I have been practicing hands-on with people for a long time, group classes, workshops for a long time. I would say longer in private practice than online, although the online we're reaching about 10 years now. So I wanted to start with that. The reason why I don't put quick tip techniques online here on YouTube is because we're not built for the quick fix technique in terms of nervous system health and regulation. Now, there's some areas where that stuff can be really useful. So for example, I have some really good friends and colleagues who are big into circadian biology. This is being outside with morning sunlight, getting our feet onto the earth, grounding, all the things related to getting healthy circadian and hormonal rhythm in check with our biology. Because remember, we're natural beings, we're organic beings. We need to be connected to the earth and the sun. Not always with these devices, right? There's a good question that is around devices and social media in today's question lineup. My colleagues that do this, they can do a lot of quick tip techniques online because it doesn't take a lot to teach the importance of getting your feet on the bare earth or dirt or stone, or getting out in the first morning light without any glasses or contacts outdoors and allowing natural light to come into our eyeballs. These are really quick, we would call biohacks. When it comes to the nervous system and restoring regulation with the nervous system, when we haven't had regulation from the beginning, and if you are here and you are here because of some form of syndrome, you're living with chronic illness, mental illness, addiction, phobias, OCD, relationship issues, trouble being motivated, always in procrastination. I mean, the list is long, long, long. If you're here and you have been struggling with dysregulation for a long time, for some of us our whole lives, what we didn't get when we were young is showing up as adults in our adulthood. And just like we cannot biohack raising a baby, although I'm sure some people are trying right now, it's old-fashioned, the way in which we need to tend to a new human. Connection, co-regulation, attunement, secure attachment, food, shelter, safety, play, sleep, activity, all these things that a newborn human infant needs. You cannot just follow a list and apply a technique when a baby is crying and hope that that helps them learn how to soothe. We tried this with cry it out methods and sleep training. It's a disaster. It doesn't work. It creates more dysregulation. So I wanted to start with that because this is why you won't find me teaching quick little techniques with the eyes. Now, there are some basic neurosensory exercises on my site. And if you're brand new here and you're not ready to begin with my courses and programs now, that's totally cool. We call them freebies, free resources, where they are about 15 to 20 minutes long audio, where I'm teaching you the basics of learning how to orient, connect to the ground, connect to our internal senses, sense our breath, real important basics. My drop-in classes also are a way to start with one little tidbit and theme with a bit of theory. But these things are pieces of the puzzle. They're not the whole enchilada, so to speak. And speaking of enchiladas, I'm going to give you an analogy in a second that came to mind after a question that I had today. So the other thing, for those here who are putting comments in the chat, thank you so much. I'm just going to take a look. I'm not going to be living in the chat, mainly because that will distract me. So my team, Susan and Bailey, thanks you too, wonderful women, are in here pulling questions and putting them into something so I can find them. And but I wanted to see who's here. So hello, everyone. Good to see ya. Okay. So I got a question the other day on Instagram. So bear with me as I read this out. It's very, very important. And this comes into why I'm about to talk about cooking and food. If you're on my email list, you will have been prompted that I was going to use an analogy today to teach you these pieces, not how to regulate your nervous system here, but why we need more than just quick fix techniques. So this was from someone on Instagram, and they ask, I've been doing nervous system regulation for almost 2 years. Will there ever come a time that I won't have to do top down and bottom up exercises to help? Or is this a lifelong thing? I then ask, great question. Can you tell me what you've been doing? Has it been my programs? Question. And then I say, overall, yes, there is a time, but it depends on what is being practiced and how it's being integrated. So I'm going to go back up for a minute. When this person asks or says, I've been doing nervous system regulation for almost 2 years, And this is not a hit against this question. This is a really good question. So I want to just be very clear if this person is listening. The language let me know, it gave me a little tip off that let me know that it's very possible that this person is doing a lot of random techniques and exercises by them saying, I've been doing nervous system regulation, because that is hugely broad. And then this concept of, is there a time where I don't have to do top down and bottom up? Here's what's interesting. The work that myself and my colleagues do, and I heard this first from Peter Levine, founder of Somatic Experiencing. Someone asked him on an interview, they said, and I paraphrase, are top down, which is talk therapy, where you're using your cognition, your thinking, your smarts, essentially, your neocortex, to think of things, bring in concepts into your brain, and then you infuse them down into the body. Versus bottom up is where you just do the body work, and then that impacts the top, the brain. Now, someone said to Peter, I know that your work is bottom up. Do you believe in top down? And he kind of was like, no, it's both. And this is the thing. True nervous system regulation practice is both happening at the same time. And the reason why is, as a grown human, and I'm going to assume all of us here are grown humans, because you can hear what I'm saying, you can comprehend English, you can read, you can probably write, you can do basic things. You're at a point where your brain is fairly developed and you can think and you can feel. Now, these things we want to refine when we do nervous system regulation work, but it is impossible to just do one or the other. Now, some might say we need to do bottom up, but the mind, the thinking, the cognition is always there. Just like when we're learning something, the body is always there. But the question is, are we paying attention, or have we learned how to pay attention to both at the same time? And so by this, I mean, are we learning the skills to do what we should have learned as an infant and specifically toddler and child? When we start learning words and what feelings are and what right and wrong is when we're little, and we hear our parents and our caregivers and our school teachers talk to us. Now, of course, we want to have time to process what we feel, and we kind of we have kind of lived in the West in this world of just being in our heads, right? There's thousands of memes out there where it's just the human and the brain and the rest of the body is cut off. So because of our lack of apprenticeship of this connection between the mind and the body, and I'm going to add also the environment, we then put these practices into packages of top down, bottom up. So that's my long way of saying we want to do both. So then this person, again, back to this question, answers me when I ask, what have you been doing? And I say to them, of course, we don't want to be doing these exercises. That would show me, if you had to keep doing my exercises forever, I would not be doing my job. Just like if someone had to keep seeing me in private practice every week for 20 years, I'm not doing my job. And so they then say, this is what I've been doing. I've been doing vagus nerve exercises, grounding, I think they mean earthing, somatics, and meditation. I have good days and days that I don't have much capacity. Just wondering if this is a lifelong adventure, or if one day I'll be able to handle stress better. So all these things that this person wrote down, grounding, vagus nerve exercises, somatics, meditation, not so much. I don't teach meditation per se in my courses, but it does have a time and a place, but typically not as a first avenue to healing the nervous system. We want to do this way later. And from my experience, the heavy meditators that have gone into my work and programs, they stop meditating per se, because being in their body and being in connection with this top down and bottom up and in connection with the environment is a meditation in itself. It's being human. It's being in a human state that isn't in survival stress. Or we're better at noticing our survival stressors coming up and we work with them in the moment, on the go, during life. We don't have to sit and do an exercise. We're just bringing it into our life. So now to the cooking analogy. I'm going to shift gears. This is going to come together, I promise. Let me have a little sip of drink here. So, who here cooks? I cook. I love to cook. I don't know if I was ever taught how to cook. It just sort of came to me naturally via having to fend for myself and being interested in it. True story, my husband Seth and I, we love watching cooking shows. Specifically, we love watching Bobby Flay. Shout out to Bobby. He's like the only celebrity I pay attention to. And I was listening to him just today on his podcast, new podcast. So if you think of these high-level chefs or cooks, people that know how to cook, they will take ingredients and they will make something with it. I know this is kind of like, well, of course, Irene. There are some people that don't learn how to really cook from scratch, and that's okay. They have to use a recipe and they have to measure everything perfectly. There's no natural intuition on how to cook. I believe everyone can learn how to cook, but if we didn't get it from the beginning, at the beginning of our life, we have to work a little hard to learn this later. So you see where I'm going with this. If we don't know how to cook and we're given all these ingredients for a 3-course Italian meal, I can give you, the risotto and the cheeses and the creams and the onions and the pasta and the meats and the vegetables and the salad and all of the beautiful herbs and basil and beautiful stuff, seafood, dessert, tiramisu. I give you all these ingredients and they're just on the table. And each day you just kind of look at some, and maybe you make like rice one day, and then the next day you take some basil and you sprinkle it on some salad. And then the next day you take that fresh pasta and you mix and you like, I'm just going to have the pasta, but you're not learning how to integrate them to create what we would call a very classic primi, secondi, and then contorni vegetable salad dish with dessert at the end and aperitivo at the beginning. I love Italian food. So there's a string in how we're meant to eat proper traditional Italian food. But if we're not taught the how and the why and the culture and how to put together the ingredients and how to make the pasta and how to time the water with the sauce and how to prepare the poultry or the fish or the beef or the vegetables or the salad and get all the things ready, it's just a mess of food that we're just taking in randomly. So when it comes to nervous system regulation and the way we were designed to find regulation, which is originally through co-regulation with our mother, which if we didn't get, not a worry. If you are here standing up, listening to me, nodding your head or saying, oh, I don't like this girl or whatever, maybe you like what I'm saying or it makes sense or you're taking some notes, you have got the brain capacity to understand that, yep, didn't get what I needed when I was young, but I'm here, interested, eager, but we have to put the ingredients together the way they were not maybe put together when we were young. So what's happening, I think, with a lot of folks, now that there are so many influencers online and so many people who have gone through somatic trauma trainings but haven't been in private practice for years, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some of us need to start at a certain place, and that's how we get better. We practice. That's why it's called a practice. But over the years and years I've been doing this work, I know that it's not enough to just give you the pasta and give you the ingredients for tiramisu and give you the cheese and all the tomatoes and say, go do it. Just grab some of these things each day and try to make a meal. So when a person says, I've been doing vagus nerve exercises, grounding, somatics, and meditation, that's like me thinking, oh, they've been given the ingredients, but they haven't been taught how to put it together. And when I speak to my students who have been putting it together in the way that I teach in my programs, in the way that I ask people to pace themselves and understand the sequencing of neuroplastic healing. The sequencing would be like how you would sequence that 3-course dinner in Italy. You would never have your vegetables first. You would always have the pasta or starch first, and then the protein, right? There's a sequence. There's a sequence to how we learn regulation of our nervous system as an adult, and that's what we do in my courses and programs. Second story to this, and then I'll get to the questions. Back when I was first starting to put this work online, I don't remember the year, it might have been 2013, I'm making a guess. I was at a conference in California, and it was for health coaches to learn how to do business. This is part of what we have to do because I can't go anywhere and sign up and get a job. I have to create my own work because this work is not recognized by establishments yet. And I was sitting at a round table, as you do in these big conference centers inside of hotels. And, I'm talking to the person next to me and what do you do? What do you do? And I said, oh, I work with the nervous system. And then they say, oh, I work with the nervous system too. And I said, oh, great. I was super excited. What do you teach? And then they said, oh, we teach people about their vagus nerve. I said, oh, cool. And then I said, well, how do you get them into the social engagement versus the low tone dorsal of this versus that versus the primitive versus the rest digest? And you could tell and I made it very slower. I was, having a civil conversation, but I was like talking about the polyvagal theory. And I said, how do you work with all these different levels? I'd love to talk to you. And the guy looked at me, totally didn't know what I was talking about. And he's like, oh, no, we don't teach our clients how it works, how the vagus nerve works. We just give them the exercises to stimulate the vagus nerve, and all they care about is results. And I went, oh, okay, I get it. And I excused myself and sat at another table. Now, I share that because this person wasn't being bad. They just were not probably as steeped and experienced, I'm assuming, as myself and the Peter Levines of the world and my other high-level colleagues to understand that the vagus nerve isn't just one nerve. It's a branch of nerves that has different elements of more advanced and more primitive. It has different tones. It puts us into rest digest. It puts us into social engagement, and it also puts us into shutdown. So to just do a vagus nerve exercise for the sake of toning it is misinformation. I hate to use that word, but it's true. It is not accurate. So I wanted to share that too, because there's been a lot of stuff that's been put out there that has been said, this is this, you need to do this, and then you'll be better. But we got to learn how to cook. So I teach you guys how to cook, not literally, but with your nervous system, and how to make it sequence and how to work with it in a way that makes sense. So thank you, everyone, for listening to my story. I'm going to get into the questions now. Now, before I get into them, I'm going to take some more liquid. It's possible that some of what I've already said will have answered some of the questions that I have, which will be great. Okay. One thing, too, that a lot of people wonder is, okay, so your course is called the 21 Days. Do I have to do it in 21 days? Absolutely not. It's just a 21-day curriculum. You can take, some people take a year, some people take 6 months, some people take 2 months. Some people don't even pay attention to how long it takes. They just work through it at their own pace. Just like you cannot force a little human to learn faster than what they can. And oddly, when you don't put pressure on them, when you give them space to explore and you're interested with them and they're interested, the learning happens a lot easier. Okay, so the first question here is from, let's see if I can pronounce. A lot of these are Instagram and YouTube handles. So Kits Lehel. So you ask, what could be some techniques that people think are real fixes that are only temporarily work? So I sort of just answered this, the vagus nerve. So here, I'm going to start by saying this a different way. I teach vagus nerve exercises in Smart Body, Smart Mind. This is my longer course. So 21 days kind of precedes that. I teach tons of somatic movement. I'm a high-level trained Feldenkrais practitioner. So just like this person said, I've been doing somatics. I teach these connections of the head and the pelvis and the ribs and the eyes and the mouth and the jaw. But the thing is that again, you have to learn how to do them in a way that you are paying attention to what's happening with your biology and survival stress. You can't just do the movement for the sake of doing the movement. You've got to sense and learn how to be with what is there. The other technique I would say that is often commonly thought to as being a nervous system reset is breathwork. Now, breathwork, I've done other videos on this. If you look up breathwork and my name, you'll probably find a longer, piece on it. But the thing with breathwork is, and I know there's a breathing question a little bit lower down here, we don't want to fix and coerce our breath to change. We want it to shift naturally through greater capacity in our nervous system. So people will say, oh, I did breath work to reset my nervous system. Okay, well, you might have had a breathwork session and that was therapeutically beneficial to your cardio and respiratory organism, and you feel more calm. There's been a state shift, like shifting a gear of the car, but you haven't changed the engine. It's still the same engine, you've just changed the gear. So breath work is a big one. Vagus nerve exercises, again, somatics, not really a thing. To me, a lot of the somatic stuff I see is just more awareness-based movement. I would rather someone go to an aerobics class or, go to a good yoga class and get in their body and really feel it, but then do more advanced, what I would call Feldenkraisian learning, to learn how to get out of the patterns that our physiology puts us into when we are under stress and fear. So it all comes down to, what are we doing with these quote unquote techniques? Are we actually teaching someone how to use it to shift and grow capacity, or are we just showing them a technique to calm them down when they're stressed out, or to perk them up when they're low? Hydrotherapy has become quite big, specifically cold plunges. I've done a video on that. Be sure to check that out. That's another one. We can go into these bodies of water, of cold or hot, and it pumps our system, it shifts it. We might feel more alert, more relaxed, but it's not getting to the core root of the dysregulation. Okay, next question. From Instagram, I'd love to hear your perspective on panic, especially if it's showing up for the first time in middle age, late 40s. What are your recommendations on healing gut-wrenching panic? And also any book recommendations. So panic, this happened to me. So it wasn't until maybe 12 years ago that I experienced a full-blown panic attack. I talk about this on one of my videos on my site. Can't remember which one, not important right now. What was happening though was I was gaining more capacity. So this was me, and then I'll talk more generally. My system was coming out of freeze. I was in a very deep functional freeze for my whole life. So functional, but covering up a lot. And as I started to get more awareness on board and really feel myself in a deeper way, and I was already pretty good with athletics. I was an athlete. I had 4 years of Feldenkrais training under my belt. Like, what's going on? But this just shows how clever our system is at packing stuff inside. I basically had a panic attack driving over a bridge one day for no reason. I am not afraid of heights and I love driving. So it had nothing to do with those things. It had to do with being in an enclosed space, and I was a little stressed. I was late for something. It was very scary, but I was fine. So what this often is, kaleidoscope life, and again, I can't be 100% sure, but it's often old fight, flight. This is sympathetic nervous system states coming up to the surface because something has shifted in our body. It can be that we're gaining more regulation, more awareness. We just went through some serious solar flares of the sun. That hit of energy affects us as humans. A lot of people were having trouble sleeping, crazy dreams, emotions flying all over the place because our system was being hit with an electromagnetic frequency that we're just not used to dealing with. The other thing, when we get into our late 40s, because I'm now into my early 50s, our hormones change. I know from talking to many women of my age who are a little older, a little younger, if we have not worked specifically on healing our nervous system and working through our traumas, this hormonal change into our late 40s can hit us like a ton of bricks. And it can be pretty intense for some women. Sleepless nights, emotional dysregulation, body symptoms, pain. The classic one that we hear about are hot flashes. I would say personally, I haven't had that stuff, but I know many have. And they will say, whoa, this dysregulation that was in my system, it really got shown and presented to me when I hit peri-menopause and then menopause. So my recommendations on healing this is what I teach. So there's no one recommendation. It comes back to use my cooking analogy, learning how to cook, learning how your nervous system works, learning how to grow capacity, learning how to understand the ingredients of your biology, of your nervous system, of your spine and pelvis and eyes, and how you connect with the world, all this stuff. This is exactly what I teach. Any book recommendations? There's so many great books. Peter Levine's books are great. Gabor Mate's books are great. Robert Scare's books. There's tons of books. Scared Sick is a great book, but these are not how-to books. They're great theory books. I have them all in my library behind me here. I've read them all multiple times in some cases. But the thing with a book, and I love books, again, don't get me wrong, it often doesn't offer the practices, right? Just like, I'll use my cooking example. You can read and read and read cookbooks and read the recipes, but if you don't do it, if you don't practice, you're not going to actually learn how to do the real work. So there are some lessons, not lessons, like simple exercises in Peter's books. I know he has a containment exercise. I think he actually mentions some of the vagus nerve lessons, but again, just diving into these lessons and exercises without understanding how to track your physiology first can actually be pretty scary for some people. So it's really important to me that we understand context, capacity building first. Education is so important, and then integrating it all into this direction that is slow and unique for you. You cannot compare yourself to other people. You have to really listen to yourself. Okay. Can this work help with SIBO? So SIBO stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, if memory serves. So this will be I'm going to answer this holistically because people might ask about SIBO, Lyme, mold, fungal overgrowth, viral problems, Epstein-Barr. There's just, put all those things into one package. This will be my answer to you. And this was from a private DM on Instagram. Everyone is different. Some people are going to need dietary shifts. If someone's eating a diet that is not right for their culture, their system, let's say they're really meant to be meat eaters and eat an omnivorous diet, but they're eating nothing but plant matter, and lots of nuts and seeds, that can be harmful. Or some people do better with a more vegetarian diet and they're trying to do carnivore, for example, right? I've got no skin in the game for these diets. You've got to know what is right for you. The other thing too is some people have a lot of toxins in their body. This was me. This is my history, chemical trauma, something that I have healed and I'm still healing from. I needed more than nervous system regulation work. I needed to do heavy metal detoxing. I needed to shift elements in my body that I don't need to get into now, but I've been working with homeopaths and all these things. So sometimes we need specifics. But the thing is this, when we have dysregulation in our nervous system, and there's no shame in this, most of us do. I certainly did to a high degree up until the last 10 years. We cannot go into proper rest digest. This is very important. The rest digest portion of our nervous system, which is a portion of our parasympathetic, it needs to be healthy and in good check so that we can heal these things that are happening internally, whether it's immune, whether it is gut, whether it is hormonal, whether it is lymphatic, all these things. And if we are stuck in fight, flight, or shutdown, which is another portion of the parasympathetic, the system is co-opted to survival and it is on survival mode. And so we might rest, we might go to the best retreat center in the world for 6 months. I know a lot of people have been into, at least people in my world, Pachakarma, where you go to India and you're at a hospital getting beautiful Ayurvedic treatments and your diet is catered to your, I think it's dosa and all these things. But if you have still got underlying functional freeze, high level of activation, or you're living in a shutdown response and your system cannot recover when you go to sleep at night, you can do all this great stuff, but you're not going to recover at that core level. So can this work help with SIBO and then insert all these other things I mentioned, like Lyme, mold, etc., detoxing? Yes, definitely. And you also have to address the personal system, but then also get into this autonomic regulation system. Hope that helps. Okay, someone also asked from a private DM in Insta, how does this work relate to sports parents? I thought this one was fun, that cheer loud and single out their kid. Yeah, that happens. Well, I can't speak to each and every parent because some parents just might be enthusiastic that their little person is on the lacrosse field or on the football field having a good time. And I also know, having been around a lot of parents and been in lots of sporting environments myself, that there's that parent that's just a little extra crazy, that's a little extra boisterous, that picks fights with other parents. So if someone is picking a fight, what's going on? And there's really nothing to pick a fight about. They're living in dysregulation. They probably have unresolved traumas, most likely fight, most likely flight, most likely some kind of system where they were wronged and they weren't able to protect, get their boundaries put out, say what they want to say. So then here's this opportunity to be on a sports field where there's lots of commotion. You feel wronged because little Johnny got, hit by big Eddie or whatever, and you're like, hey, that's not fair. And then you get mad and then you bring and you react out with that survival energy. So that is also how violence happens, unless someone is truly protecting someone, like they're about to, like their life is at stake and the mother or the father is protecting their child, or you're protecting a friend, or you're protecting someone from being attacked by a dog, and you have a natural fight reaction to protect someone who really needs to be protected. That's real, by the way. Like, we need to sometimes do that. But if it's a situation like a sports game and there's no life and death happening, but this one parent is treating it like it's life and death, chances are there's something going on in that parent's system that is really old. And then the other thing that often parents do is they live vicariously through their children. They didn't have maybe what they needed when they were little, and they go overboard, right? Or they value their worth based on how great their kid is. And then what does that happen? The poor kid is put under stress and all the things that aren't good. All right. So this question, I'll read it out. I think I've pretty much answered it, but they ask from, again, DM on Instagram, is it helpful for someone who has been nervous system work that's not integrated? Is it helpful for someone who has been doing nervous system work that's not integrated? No. So kind of what I said beginning is we can do some work. We can go and do a therapy session where we're maybe releasing a trauma. That's great. Again, that's not bad. But if we then go back to our home life and we're just still reacting and activated and overriding and staying in functional freeze, then we're doing a little bit of work, but we're not actually shifting it in our life. And I think this is maybe this is why I stopped private practice, you guys. It wasn't enough for me to have someone off the street come in and I would do maybe a really good piece of trauma work with them. And that's still good. You know, they're no longer holding on to that car accident trauma or that concussion trauma. But I want to go a little further. And so it still can be helpful, I guess I could say, if I want to be diplomatic here. But the question might be, what do we really want? Do we want to be able to live better in all aspects of our life? Or do we want to just work on that one accident that we had when we were young, but other parts of our life are a disaster? Everyone's going to be different, but that would be my answer to that question. Okay, from Chrysaline 9793 on YouTube. Your question, I was wondering if you could talk about the effects of young people's nervous system and constantly being exposed to things on social media. Yes, it's a big issue these days. Social media dissociates and creates internal turmoil more than almost anything else. So I'll address the first part. I mean, we're in a bit of an experiment right now. We know this because I'm starting to see I think it was maybe New Zealand, don't quote me on that, has banned, I don't know if it was cell phones or social media in the classroom. I don't know how they do that, how they've just banned social media. They'd have to also ban the phones, the mobiles. But yeah, we are not meant to see the level. It's not so much the content. It is the content. It's the speed. It's the speed at which the content is coming through. And then, of course, we're seeing stuff that maybe we shouldn't see. But kids used to see things that they shouldn't have seen when they were my age. You know, let's face it. We'd get a copy of the magazine that maybe we shouldn't have, or the VHS cassette we shouldn't have, or the real intense rap music that we shouldn't listen to. But the difference is, you see that magazine, you watch that VHS tape, you watch the scary movie that you probably shouldn't have seen, but then it's done. And I mean, I've got my phone right here. When you've got the social and you're constantly looking, the algorithm finds you, and then you see more and you see more, and it becomes addictive. Now, it's not going to become addictive if someone has actual regulation, right? So of course it's going to be impacting kids. And this comes back to balancing it, you know, and again, everyone's different, but I'm of a belief of playing outside, building things, sport, learning how to be in the home, cook, clean, all these things that kids are losing track of as they get so immersed in this world. So again, it all comes down to, of course, parents and them having discussions with kids. But I mean, in my opinion, a child shouldn't even be seeing social media or any of that until they're like 16. I know it's like, yeah, right, Irene, good luck. But, there was a reason why you couldn't get into the restricted R movies when I was young, right? You could not get into the R-rated movies. You couldn't even go with a parent, I don't think. In terms of social media dissociating us, it all depends on the person. I am on social media a lot. I can honestly say I'm not dissociating. I do not doom scroll. I might get too into something because I'm like, ooh, this is fun. But when you have an awareness of yourself, there is a part of you that goes, I'm out. Got to do other things, right? I got to do the dishes. I got to wash the laundry. I got to I've got to show up for this call. So everyone's different. It isn't inherently the social media that's creating dysregulation, but our dysregulation is making us attach and become addicted to the social media. And it does have an addictive quality to it, which is amazing because it's not like it tastes salty. It's not crunchy, right? It's not sweet, but it is pushing the buttons within the neurotransmitters in our hormonal system. And before we know it, we've, spent hours on something, looking at things that aren't important at all. So education is important, and really focusing kids on doing things that are not computer-based. And it's going to be very important for parents to show that as well. Because if you're still on your phone all night long, or when you're at the dinner table and it's just there, or you're looking at your phone when you're driving at the stoplight, it's like kids see that. So why should they stop if we're constantly on it, right? So that's the other thing. Okay. Next question. So this is from YouTube, at HHMJ4NQ. So I'm interested in how someone can work with them being good at manipulating the body's reactions to staying safe. You might need to read this a couple times. So kind of control the body, but it becomes a habit that they can't feel the authentic impulse. So it sounds like what this person is asking is, this is a situation where someone is good at shifting. They use the word manipulating. I'm going to say shifting the body's reactions to stay safe. So what it sounds like is control. Someone who's very good at controlling reaction. And then that becomes a habit. Yes. So this is humanity for the most part in the West. We feel an impulse. We know we want to do it, but then we stop it. We control, or we want to express ourselves. We stop. We feel gas come up and we need to burp or pass gas below and fart, flatulence. We hold it in. We need to go to the bathroom. We hold it in. I share this because one of the first things that we want to work with when we're learning how to regulate our nervous system is to get better at following our biological impulses. And the reason that's important is because when we're infants, that's all that's happening with our primary caregiver. Hungry, gets fed. Poopy diaper, gets changed. Baby needs to pee, they pee. They're not asking, right? They feel something's not right, they cry, ask for help, right? And then the caregiver has to watch and attune and help connect with those bodily needs that need connection, that feeding, that warmth, that play, that soothing. Each time that occurs, that creates a little drop of co-regulation, which leads to self-regulation. So for adults, if we know that we are controlling and manipulating, as you say in this case, our reactions, know that this is probably a result of you having to do that at some point to stay safe, as you wrote. The trouble with this is it means that we're holding in probably really important old survival stresses that have to come up and out. And we need to get that stuff out, because when we don't get that stuff out, that is what makes us sick. That is what creates more dysregulation, and this is where we end up with chronic troubles. So that's what I have to say about that. There wasn't so much a question there, but yeah, we want to be able to go from being in control to being able to let go of control in a healthy way, so our system can properly flow on the internal and have good connection to the external. Okay. Oh, so many questions, you guys. There's no way I'm going to get through all of these. Let's see if I'm going to really, I'm going to try to curate them for a moment. So someone asked about lymphatic drainage, fascia release, and block therapy to help with nervous system dysregulation. So as a general cause and effect, just doing fascia release and just doing lymph drainage will not create nervous system regulation on its own. It might shift tension in the fascia, release the fascia, get lymph moving so that there can be more flow in the body, but it will not deal with or help the survival physiologies that are connected to, let's say, stored, we would call these procedural memories, where we have something trapped inside due to an accident or a shock. Now, but they go hand in hand. Some of my best friends are specialists in fascia release, but they know, because they're experienced and experts, you can't just release the fascia and then poof, everything is better. You have to process maybe the emotion or the memory, or sometimes the tissue is so tight and blocked that you need to first work on building capacity so that it has even a chance to budge and open. So it goes both ways, but lymphatics being healthy and flowing are super important. But again, if you have a system that is in a deep, deep shutdown or in some form of functional freeze, you can push and poke and move the body, even with the gentlest of techniques. But if there is that unconscious physiology saying, you're not getting in. Nope, I see what you're trying to do. You might move some tissue, but then it's just going to go back. And this is why I think so many people have success with a little bit of manual work, and then 2 days later or a week later, the system is back to being tight, right? So just like anything, if we are doing something over and over and we're not getting a result, chances are there's something underlying that's keeping the system locked up. So someone asks, do you need to replace the bad coping mechanisms first, then the trauma, or deal with the trauma and then create better coping mechanisms? Everyone is different. So this comes back to what I said at the beginning about learning how to cook your Italian meal. You have to first understand, why are there coping mechanisms there? If one needs to have a coping mechanism to keep them safe, then do it. Now, of course, if that coping mechanism is really harmful to the body, like a serious addiction, we want to watch that. We don't want that to continue. Sometimes we need to work with a trauma that is so big and hairy and scary that we need to move it out of the system. But sometimes we can't even get into that because the system is so shut down. And so again, back to how I work in my courses specifically, the layering of education and gentle foundational work is so important, because what happens is after we do that for a few months, we start to assess and go, oh, okay, I think it's ready. I'm ready to start working on that specific thing that I have not been able to face because it's been too scary, but now I have more capacity. Or, oh, as I've been working on this capacity, I've noticed I don't need that thing anymore. I don't need that mechanism to soothe me in the same way. This is good, right? So we start to notice how even our behaviors shift. but I can't tell you specifically, do this first and that first, and then this happens. So someone had a question about cortisol and hormones. Will these programs help? Again, I can't give you a specific yes, but I know that my students have had hormonal improvements because their nervous system is no longer in fight, flight, freeze, and shut down. And so we need cortisol, we need adrenaline, we need all these hormones to move and do their thing. Everyone is different. Everyone's age is different. Our metabolic capacity, our output, how active we are, everyone's a bit different. But again, when we have not worked on these survival stressors that are in our system saying alert, danger, protect, keep the guards up, or collapse, we need to stay small and really meek and tiny and pretend to be invisible. Like if we still have that running our show, we will be kind of chasing our tail, so to speak, trying to figure out hormones. The two things that have really, I've seen help people with hormonal health are the circadian biology pieces that I talked about at the beginning, and then of course regulating the autonomic nervous system. So I hope that helps. My good friend Sarah Kleiner is really good at helping specifically women and men, but she's a bit more focused on women with their hormonal issues, specifically leptin. So that's something to look into. This is YouTube, how could the training, so my courses, help with complex grief? It seems the loss of my husband has opened up the Pandora's box of all my traumas. Oof. So first of all, super sorry for your loss of your husband. I know that this is a common thing, obviously, that occurs. I'm going to share a story of one of our students. I can't remember if it was in the 21-day nervous system tune-up or smart body, smart mind. I believe it was smart body, smart mind, but don't worry. Most people start with 21-day and then go to SBSM. She had also lost her husband quite suddenly, I think. And she remembers the day that she went through the first 4 or 5 hours of her day and hadn't thought about him. And the reason she hadn't thought about him wasn't because she was trying to be mean or anything like that, but she was so in her own body and in her environment that she was immersed in the moment, in her physical being, in the present moment, doing what she had to do on that day. And she got to that by doing the lessons and working through the grief and working through the traumas in the way that we do in my courses. Now, of course, the moment she remembered or realized, there was that a bit of shame because she felt terrible for forgetting him in those moments. But this is the push-pull. This is the dance that happens when we lose someone we love. We have to grieve, but we also don't want to stay in that grief indefinitely because that will also put us into a massive stress response. You know, there's a reason why people often, more elderly people, will say, yeah, you know, my mom went or my dad went, and then shortly after, my other parent declined and died. I don't think that has to happen. I understand why that happens, especially when you've just lost your best friend. And if you want to continue to be in the world and maybe you've got kids or grandkids or friends or hobbies, then it's important, I think, to get into this body, work and release at that level so that you can continue to love and then really honor that memory. Okay, next question from YouTube. Does having a religion, I've never had this question before, does having a religion help or hinder healing? It all depends on your relationship to that religion. Because what I've seen, again, I've just heard this from questions, some religions, especially Christianity, from what I've heard, and I was raised Catholic, I'm not a practicing Catholic by any means right now, but I respect those who do, will be given these really interesting rules that you can't work with energy, or there's no such thing as energy. There's no such thing as chakras. A lot of people will say, I can't do the Om sound of yoga, and I don't teach the Om sound of yoga, but there's sort of this fear that's instilled that these are bad things to do. I don't know if it has something to do about waking up demons or devils. I don't know. I don't really question it too much, but I will say to people, yeah, I believe in chakras. I believe in soul. I believe in past lives. And I also believe in the biology. I believe in the trees and the stars and the multiverse and all these things. So it all comes down to whether or not the religion you practice allows one to have an open mind to other universal laws. And if that is there, great. But if there's something in us that's conditioned us that says, I cannot imagine energy in my body, then I will say that, yes, this will hinder, because in order to release traumas and work with your nervous system, our nervous system is electrical. It is electrical more than anything. And you feel things, you will feel energies, you will have memories, you will have dreams. You might have memories of other lifetimes. And then that poses a problem, a paradox, if we were told there's no such thing as this. So, I think one of my most lovely students, her name is Darla. She was a 21 day and then SBSM member, did some great interviews with her. She healed from a pretty bad spinal injury from a car accident. She has a strong faith, Christian faith. And yet she was so hip to learn about the chakras and the diaphragms and do the sounds. And she's a grandma. She's a cool grandma. So she has this strong, strong faith and belief in God. And that's wonderful. But then she also had this really strong opening to learn about different things. So it all depends on you. It depends on what you're interested in and what you're willing to maybe let go of, think differently on. Because here's the thing, when we start to work at this energetic level, at this biological, electrical, nervous system level, and we really start to connect to the earth in a different way, my students will say time and time again, I feel more spiritual, but it's not because of a religion or a God. It's just this force. It's a source. One might call that Christ consciousness, but we don't have to. It's just an energetic knowing that we're all into this together and we all have to do our own work, but there is something bigger than us guiding. And that guiding wants us to be well. So thanks for that question. That was a fun one to answer. Okay, next question. So we're about an hour here, guys. So I'm going to go a little longer. It's getting dark here on my afternoon as we get to the shortest day of the year here in the north. So from YouTube, what role does co-regulation play in helping to build nervous system capacity as an adult when you have a history of childhood trauma? Great question. It depends on what you have access to. So, this is kind of a common debate question that we ping pong back and forth between colleagues and such, and methodologies. Some people will say, I had a mentor saying to me once, there's no way you can do this work online. Has to always be done in an office, therapeutically, with a person, face to face, or on a massage table. Can't do this online. Well, we can. And I know that this person now does that online, but we're not in the same room. I have heard from my students, now thousands, who only listen to my voice and they feel self-soothing. They learn self-regulation through just the voice of co-regulation. This actually goes really well with the last question around religion. Why do people pray? It's to connect. You can name what it is that you're connecting to, but you're connecting to something that isn't you. Some people would say that God is in us, and I believe that as well. But there is this opening to something else. So co-regulation can happen with a person. It can happen with an object. Sounds strange, I know. Resources can help us co-regulate. I don't have a warm drink anymore. This is cold now. But I can hold a cup of tea, and it's not a person, but it can be a positive resource, and it can soothe me. It can build capacity. Now, when we're an infant, you can't give the infant a cup of tea and say, go co-regulate yourself, right? So I want to be very clear. That has to happen with another human. But as an adult, we actually have the ability to have imagination and have all sorts of things that we can co-regulate with. Music, right? There's a reason why people love to listen to music. I love watching people in their cars who are bopping, to their music. Books, shows. Now, of course, we can overdo it with some of these things. But the key is, and this goes back to my example on cooking an Italian meal, if we bring in these resources to regulate or co-regulate, then the key is listening to your internal physiology and taking note. Oh, when I hold this warm cup of tea and pretending it's warm, my shoulders drop. I breathe a little deeper. My saliva wettens a little bit, which means my rest digest is coming on a little bit. I look away and I feel my brain kind of calm down. So if we do that enough times and we really pay attention, then you can take that memory, because we have a higher brain. This is why the top down and the bottom up that I talked about at the beginning is so important. Because of that higher brain and that ability to track, I can, in a week, be in my car, be freezing cold and stressed, and think, oh, warm cup of tea, even though I don't have it with me. And that can put me into that state shift. So that's how co-regulation plays a part. Now, of course, if you can work with a therapist, if you have a best friend, this is why, AA, it's got its 12 steps, but my hunch is the reason that works so well, it's not so much the 12 steps, don't hate me for saying that, it's the connection. It's having that sponsor, it's having that person to talk to. So it all depends on your situation, where you are. Some people just don't have healthy humans around them, and they have to co-regulate and resource with things that are not human. Or animals. That's another way. A lot of people love having pets. The other one I will add, which often people don't think about this, if you do live somewhere where you can go into a coffee shop or a grocery store or wherever we go to do things, when you talk to that person who's checking you out, pause, notice it's a person. Yes, they're serving you, but that's another opportunity to co-regulate. If you're in a park and it looks like someone's willing to say hello, smile. A smile can go a long way. That is co-regulating. So again, we don't have to be in sort of an intimate, romantic, or therapeutic relationship to work with co-regulation. It's sort of its opportunity is always there when we are in society. Okay. So this is a question from YouTube, and it's for her husband. So do you have any tips on hyperventilation due to stress and fibromyalgia? I don't have any specific tips, just kind of as you're maybe getting my vibe. I can't say do this, but what I can say is when one has hyperventilation that occurs for no quote unquote reason, stress, fibromyalgia, it's going to be really important to build capacities so that system can direct focus somewhere else. Often when people have breathing problems, there's this oversensitization where we feel constriction or we feel stress, but before we even know it, I'm pointing to my guts here and to my groin, we're tightening up the perineal muscles. We're tightening up the chest, the throat. Maybe we're clenching our fists or our feet. So a person who has trouble with breathing or their breath goes a little erratic, the breathing process is actually quite intelligent when we have regulation on board, right? If we start walking, we want the breath rate to go up, and then the heart rate should go up and check, and the blood pressure. And then when we sit down, we want it to lower in a nice, smooth fashion. This is regulation. But if the system is spiking for no reason, that again, and you say he has fibromyalgia. Fibromyalgia is not a disease. It is a syndrome related to autonomic dysregulation of the nervous system. So these all go together. And the key is, again, he has to want to do this work, is learning about the physiology, learning why it is stuck in these survival responses, and starting to work with the system to get it out of those intense states of stress. Okay, more water. Okay. So this is a really interesting question. It's a little longer, but I'm going to read it out. I've had long COVID, so this came into support from Corbin. I've had long COVID since August. A few days ago, I was thinking about how some people get tinnitus, some might call it tinnitus, and this is this ringing in the ear from it. And I wondered if it could go the other way. Could COVID cure it? I've had really bad tinnitus for several years, different loud frequencies in each ear. Each day or so after having that, I realized that my left ear had gone silent and was down about 40%. This has never changed in decades until that moment. But then the silence lasted only 24 hours, and then it returned as loud as ever. I immediately thanked everyone, mind, body, and nervous system, for the respite. So you've thanked your body, said that it was relaxing, wonderful, and that you were open to it happening again. So my question was, that the power of neuroplasticity or just a weird coincidence? I mean, I can't tell you exactly what's going on here, Corbin, but what I can speak to is tinnitus. So let's just say that you haven't had ear damage, because one can have tinnitus when there has been sound ear damage due to large machinery, not wearing ear protection, firearm use, clubbing, being in loud rock concerts. So that can create damage to the ear. But there is also this situation where a person will have tinnitus and it is due to dysregulation of the nervous system. Now, I'm not an expert in this, but I know from working with folks and experiencing this myself that this can shift and leave when we get more regulation, but we also sometimes will have it come up as we are working with our nervous system. I had tinnitus for the first time a couple years ago, and it just came out of nowhere, but it wasn't obtrusive and terrible for days. It was just there for maybe 5 minutes, and then I was able to sit with my body, be with it, and it shifted. So everyone's going to be different. I do know I've had some messages from people who have had long COVID and long vaccine, and they have had terrifyingly terrible, if there's such a thing, tinnitus that just won't go away. And so I would say it'd be very important for you, if anyone is dealing with this, to work at the nervous system level, because we do know that the COVID factors have impacted the central and autonomic nervous system. This is why we're seeing such a wide range of symptoms. It's not just a lung infection or a sinus infection. It's making people fatigued. It's messing up their hormones. It's messing up their energy and their mitochondrial function. It's giving them tinnitus. It's giving them POTS, which is where our system can't regulate blood pressure very well. I'm really kind of simplifying this, but I would also say that it might be important to seek out functional medicine, naturopathic work. But it would be interesting to see what occurs if you were to dive into a bit more deeper nervous system work to see if that can shift. So I would say have hope and continue looking for answers for that one. Okay. Reading the questions, you guys. So someone on YouTube asked, this comes into grief and just feeling really, really lost. So this person asks, I lost my mother when I was 2 in a car accident. I was also in the accident as well as my father. Years later, in my mid-30s, I lost my husband in a similar accident. I've done tons of talk therapy. I'm 62. Will this help? I know it will help. And it comes down to you, the person, and this is for everyone who's asking the question right now, because I'm not going to get to all your questions. Anybody who's here asking, will this help? I know that it will help if you are interested in helping yourself, if you're interested in doing the learning and the healing. Now, will this be the only thing you have to do? Probably not, because we still need to make sure we're eating well, our environment is healthy, we're not stuffing our body with toxins and chemicals, we have good relationships, all these things. But we all have the similarity of a nervous system. And in this history of that car accident and then another accident, and then you lost your husband in a similar accident, the world has a very strange, some might say sick and twisted way of putting in front of us the same accident over and over again. I know this because I've worked with people who have had this exact same thing happen. And this to me is a sign that it would be very important for you to work not only in the way that I work to gain foundation, basic practices, and regulation in the way I teach online, but if you can work with someone one-on-one in conjunction with my course, and we do have some practitioners on my site who are open to do sessions. I do not get a cut of what they make. They're private entities, because it might be important to work on the specific shocks of these accidents, because something in your nervous system is trying to repeat that accident so that you heal it. And I just know that this is a common theme. It's a very spooky thing that happens to people, but it does happen. Okay. Someone asked on YouTube, strange, even as an SBSM member, so this is my 12-week course, I'm finding just hearing about this stuff still makes me anxious. And then they say, I'm surprised. Is this normal for someone still learning the basics? Definitely can be. I mean, when we're learning the basics, we are still probably working with a ton of dysregulation, right? And this doesn't just, it's very important for me to say this, you guys, when you start this work, there isn't just this flip. There's no switch that just one day you're dysregulated and the next day you're regulated. It's like learning how to cook that 3-course Italian meal. It's like learning a new language as an adult. It takes time. And so I've been talking for almost an hour and a half. This is a lot of information. And this isn't how I teach in SBSM or in the 21 day. It is much more titrated. And because you're here wanting to listen, you're probably not stopping and coming back and resting. And so there's just this kind of constant barrage of information, all these different concepts and traumas and examples and my analogies. And so this can definitely put us into a little bit of a fight flight. So I would just say, yes, it's very important to keep growing your basics and growing the capacity. And this is completely normal. I already answered the question about perimenopause. So in my experience, when people have intense problems in this area, it isn't only this, because our food, our circadian biology all make a difference. But when we have got a lot of stored trauma in our system and we're living in dysregulation, this makes the perimenopause and menopause harder. It isn't the menopause and the perimenopause necessarily creating bad stuff to the nervous system. It's often the other way around. But the key is when you go through this time in your life, you also have to realize you're different. You're not as the same way you were in your 20s. And this is where women have to really realize, I can't keep pushing. I can't keep performing and going and overriding, because the system will throw you flat down and say you have to stop. And this is often why in that middle-aged portion of our lives, we see more illness, more chronic illness pop up, more chronic pain. It's the system literally, to quote Gabor Mate, the body is saying no. And so we also have to shift our expectations for what's possible. The good news is that when you have more capacity on board, you actually do have quite a bit of energy still. But if you're still dealing with dysregulation on top of the hormonal changes, it can be a double whammy. Okay. Okay, I'm going to do one more question. If you have not gotten your question answered, I apologize. I will not be able to get to all of these. I'm just doing a quick scan. I have pretty much answered, however, a lot of this stuff in what I've already mentioned. People have asked about not being able, having excessive sweating disorders, IBS, ADD, I'm just scanning, autoimmune, anxiety. So all these things, guys, they're may be unique to you, but to me, I see them all the same. And it doesn't mean that there might not be some specific treatments that help those specific conditions that are outside of my scope, whether it's homeopathy, naturopathy, functional medicine, or good old allopathic. But what I'm working with in the 21-day nervous system tune-up is a holistic way of learning about your autonomic nervous system. And no matter what it is that we're dealing with, that system, we want it to be healthier and have more capacity. If we don't, it makes it such that we can't heal as well. And this is what we teach and what you learn in the course. I'm going to finish off with one that I haven't mentioned yet today. It's from YouTube. Emma asks, what is the mechanism by which Feldenkrais exercises get us out of patterns? Great question. So I was lucky enough to be trained by a very stringent, specific trainer. His name is Jeff Haller. He's still alive, who really taught, in my opinion, the core essence of what Dr. Feldenkrais was teaching, which was less about the movement and more about how we approach and feel and sense and notice our patterns when we move. I'll say that again in a slightly different way. If we really get down to the essence of the Feldenkrais method, and I call it Feldenkraisian learning, it is less about the movement and more about how we approach a new movement, how we approach listening to our body in that movement. Now, of course, the lessons which are lovely can help with back pain. And we just got a testimony from someone the other day saying that back pain that they've had for I don't know how long time, gone. It can help with freedom in the neck, ability to move easier, stand easier, all these things. But the unique element with both of my two courses, 21-day and SBSM, Smart Body, Smart Mind, all of the lessons I teach, whether they're Feldenkrais in nature or SE, somatic experiencing principles, are being taught from this lens of how do you find what you do? How do you notice your body as you think about something? If I say I want everybody to just get up right now from how you're sitting, if I assume everyone's sitting, and you do it and you track it, I can guarantee that probably 90, maybe 85% of you will hold your breath when you stand up, or you'll clench your gut, or you'll tighten your neck in a way that you're not needing to, or you'll clench a hand, or your feet will be clenched. And that is not me picking on anyone. It's just we do things without consciously seeing how we do more than we have to. And so it's also important to understand that the somatic experiencing methodologies don't have lessons per se in them. So I have developed something unique where I've taken my experience as a highly trained Feldenkrais practitioner, and I'm verbalizing to you how to track what you might do if you were sitting in my office and me giving you touch work, or me guiding you through a body scan. And I think, and I'm pretty certain because I'm now hearing more stories, this is one of the reasons why these lessons are very different from just your classic somatic exercise or your classic vagus nerve toning lesson. I'm really guiding you into your system in a way that's different and much more slower and titrated, so that you can experience the thing that you might be playing with in that specific exercise on my course, but you're not just being thrown into the pool and then what's happening? It's a much more stage by stage, stepwise process. So I did do a video a week or two ago on why Feldenkrais I think is quite unique and quite special, because it is something that you can do with high performance sport. And I really highlighted that because that's my background. But you can take the same principles and work with someone who's recovering from stroke, or work with someone who has back pain, or work with someone who has fear with their breathing, or a collapsed spine due to toxic shame. So to me, it's kind of like a common law of healing physics, just like Einstein's theories and such are just natural, like they're just law. There's something about the Feldenkrais work at that more pure level that really helps us shift out of patterns. And then to finally end on that question, it's about teaching you guys how to learn again. You cannot work with this stuff and heal these things that I've been talking about. And when you go to my site and there's hundreds and hundreds of testimonies of a massive change. The people that are shifting, they're not just getting a list and going through the exercises in a rote, non-aware manner. They are going through in the way that I've taught, which is to learn how to listen and how to apply this stuff in the moment, but then how do you integrate that out into the world? These are the people that share the stories of success. They're integrating it into their lives. And we have people say, oh, Irene, I did your 21-day, it did nothing for me. And of course, I don't always get a chance to talk to those people. My sense is what's happening with them is they're just listening and doing. Again, I could be wrong here, but this is my sense in doing this for so long. They're listening and doing, but they're not integrating it, and they're not paying attention to what's occurring. And for some of us, because our attention span might not be great because of trauma, we have to keep at it. We have to keep going, like we're the kid in class who isn't getting it right away. But I recently heard somewhere that the kids in class who aren't the quote unquote smartest are the ones who learn how to work harder because they have to figure it out a different way. And so I present the curriculum. There's exercises, there's theory, there's support at this moment in the course. And it's up to you to take it, ask questions, and apply it. So thank you, everyone, for your questions. I've been speaking a lot. Excuse me, my voice is definitely a bit dry. So if there's a question logistically, or you're still not sure and you need to ask, you can send us an email, just support@irenelyon.com. And my staff, my team will get back to you. The other thing is, if there's a specific, you can always put it into YouTube, type the words, the keywords in my name, and I have been doing these videos for years. So chances are something will pop up. And again, a reminder, today's the last day to get in for the sale, our cyber sale. It's $100 off, $297. We only do this once a year. So if you're wanting to do this, this is a great way to start. One last thing. If you choose to go on next year to do Smart Body, Smart Mind with me, and some people always ask, what's the difference? They are different. They're progression. So one does not have to do 21 day to do SBSM. But if you can, I suggest it first because it's a good warm up. But then what we do is we take off your tuition for 21 days off of the tuition of SBSM. So even though you're getting the sale price of $197 today, we will give you $300 off of the tuition for Smart Body, Smart Mind in late February. And so that is an investment. It's a way to put the fee towards the future course. So we've been doing that for years. It works really well. And the reason I do that is the lessons, a lot of the lessons, if not most of them in the 21 day are also in Smart Body, Smart Mind. So this is just a way to begin, get your feet wet, see if you like the way I teach, the way that I bring things to you. And then if you want to kind of go the full meal deal, Smart Body, Smart Mind would be the next step. All right. Thank you to Susan and Bailey and Crystal, perhaps, who've been on the back end, making sure all the things are running smoothly. And I'm going to see if I can end this stream. I couldn't figure out the other day. So thanks everyone so much. Apologies again if I didn't get to all the questions, but I do feel that I've answered most of them. And yeah, it is 2:30 Pacific time. So you got just under 12 hours to make that decision and put your investment towards doing this course. If you do, thank you so much for trusting me, my team, what I've been doing the last 10 years here online, and of course, close to 30 in the world, this lifetime at least. Thanks again, everybody. Appreciate all of you and all of your questions. We will see you maybe within the hallways, online hallways of the 21 days. Bye.